The way I think about it these days is really with respect to responsibility. How can I take responsibility for what I am in this world? And I apply that broadly. And usually I don't talk about the word sustainability because I think it comes as a rubric with a bunch of other understandings or agreements in society right now that I may or may not be with. I mean, most of them I find that I am with, right? I am with the notion that we'd like to leave a planet that our kids can really enjoy, right? I'm with that notion. And still, I try to frame it for myself, for my kids, for my employees, for my customers when I'm doing green building. I try to frame it in terms of everybody taking responsibility for what is theirs to take. You know, take responsibility for. How are they being? How am I in this mix? Because we're a community of human beings with a lot of power to create and a lot of power to destroy. We live the awareness of that every day. And I think the more we can be mindful of that power and how we wield it, the better each of us will act in the system. And certainly there is always pushback from people who would say, you know, we live in the Northwest, right? Lumber is a big part of our economic engine here. So isn't it also, and I will say, I think it is something we have to think about in sustainability. Who has a job? What are they doing? I don't buy into the notion that everybody has a right to a job, because I don't wish that upon myself, right? A job is not the highest end. Creativity and doing what you have, doing what you can with what you have, bringing the best of what you've got to this world is what we've got to give everybody the power and the way to do. And if somebody's in the lumber industry and the lumber industry is contracting because new construction has slowed down, how can we reframe our relationships in that? I mean, that's something that's close to my heart, because I have reached out to sawyers and millers, people who were at some point in the process of the evolution of the timber industry kind of considered scrappy ne'er-do-wells, you know, guys who were picking through lumber piles, slash piles, I should say, in the forest. They are my vendor sometimes now, right? I've reached out to guys who, they see, they're wood lovers, right? They see that madrona tree laying in the pile that's supposed to get burned, and they know it's not an A-grade piece of lumber, but they know that if they can get it on their truck and get it to their friend's land and dry it out and cut it up and air dry it and then kiln dry it, that maybe somebody will buy it. And that's a person thinking about what they can do with the love that they've got and the interest that they've got and the time and ability and friends that they've got. Unfortunately, you know, because I stump about this, I'm a believer in the notion that you don't know until you know, that there is data available on any given building. You just have to go get it. We don't have the data on most existing buildings and most existing apartments, most existing built environment, period. We don't have it, right? We may have badges of courage. This building achieved a LEED rating, but that doesn't tell us much about how it's actually doing. How comfortable is it? How much energy is it using? We cannot even use those high-level certifications to know that. The only way we can know it is by measuring it, or by living it, right? Unfortunately, you can make a leap into something and find that it's terrible. Yeah. You can get lucky and leap into something, a space, and find that it's delightful. The natural light is just right for studying by. You don't have to turn the lights on in the middle of the day because there's enough light to cook. You know, any number of things. Nothing breaks. Right? There's some really low-level things that are valuable to think about and pay attention to. I imagine a time when it will be a matter of course. You know the way it's a matter of course when you sell a building now to get a building inspection. The buyer usually searches for a building inspector, gets him or her out there to give a visual rundown of what's not working in the building. That's usually pretty valid and valuable information.
Yeah.
I imagine a time when we will use more sophisticated tools. That will be more widely accepted, and maybe we'll even have a kind of score or measure of how this building's doing, or how does it do when it's under operation.
Yeah.
I think that'll be cool for potential tenants of a building. I think it might be that it has to be mandated by government for that to happen at a multi-tenant level. Yeah, unfortunately, there is no measure I can think of that you could come by visually or archetypally. Like, could you look at a building type? Maybe. I mean, you can know that there's a trade-off everywhere, right? Like, the beautiful 100-year-old 3-story walk-up has a certain amount of delight in it, right? Like, the quote-unquote charm that it has actually speaks to your heart, and you might find that you stay there more and you don't use energy elsewhere, and you are more productive in your work. I mean, it's hard to say for sure, right? There's all kinds of energy, right? Like, productivity of work is an interesting aspect to think about when thinking about building energy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you can study by natural light in a building because of how well it's daylit, will that affect the energy usage of the building? Absolutely. Can you tell that by looking? Probably. That's one of the few things you could probably tell. But could you, and can you tell if it has single pane or double pane windows? Yeah. And that's pretty common knowledge out in the world, right? People know that double pane windows, save energy, and hopefully they know that they're also more comfortable for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? That you won't be able to, in the middle of winter, even in Seattle, Bellingham area, you won't be able to sit next to a single pane window with a short sleeve t-shirt on. It will be too cold. Right? Most people know that, at least at an intuitive level. We do have jurisdictions around Washington that are already, however, subsidizing tests of buildings or spaces. I don't know if they're doing it on tenant spaces. It might just be homes, but watch. I bet not very far down this path we're going to have, you know, cities like Bellingham and Seattle that say, if you're looking to rent a building, you can get a subsidized energy audit of that building where you'll only have to pay $95 and we'll pay the other, whatever, $425 that it costs. I'll say, you know, this comes up a lot when talking about kind of what's next, or, you know, if we who are doing green building, for example, often ask ourselves, what's next in what we're doing, or are we looking at our whole existence, our whole life? I was going to put a slide up in my presentation about how I'm addicted to flying in airplanes. I don't mean like as a pilot, but I really like to go to other countries.
Yeah.
I understand that the carbon footprint of one flight to another country is as much carbon footprint as 1 year's use of my house. Well, that's because I've worked really hard to get the footprint of my house down. What can I do about that other part? Can I let go of my addiction? Can I live more locally? Can I find more delight in the mountain? Go to the Cascades rather than to China? These are questions I'm asking of myself as a father of a 7-year-old and a 2.5-year-old right now. I'm asking, what do I want to model? What do I want to show? I mean, you have always got, I think, you know, sort of, I said it earlier, but at the base of all of this is we have to, as human beings, bumping around in this world, continually ask ourselves the question, am I awake today